listening. Wildcat Radio Coaches Show.
Crawford takes the handoff up the middle. He's loose to the 25-20. Carson Crawford 15-10-5. And Carson Crawford runs a little zone read in the middle, takes the handoff, and goes straight up the middle of the Ed White defense for the Wildcat touchdown.
And good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Dependable Heating and Air Conditioning Wildcat Radio Coaches Show. Coming to you live here on Monday night from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock right here on WFBB 97.5. Coming to you live from Glen Baptist Church in Glen, St. Mary, Florida. Excited to talk some Wildcat football for the next hour tonight. We're talking Wildcat football on Thanksgiving week, so that can only mean one thing. The Wildcats are still in the playoffs, which is good. The Wildcats moved their record to 9-2 on the season this past Friday night with a win against the Range Vikings on the road in the second round of the Class 5A playoffs. So that means the Wildcats moving on to Week 3. Week 3, Round 3 of the playoffs. There's only 5 rounds, so Round 3 is good. That means you're better than 50% of the way home. So Wildcats have a chance this week. We'll be traveling on the road again to Pensacola Pine Forest, and looking forward to that game Friday night. We'll talk about that game coming up in the show tonight with head coach Kevin Mays. But first, I want to take a few minutes and recap our game from Friday night and just say a big how do you do today to my partner from Friday night, Coach John Staples. How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing great. Great to be here tonight. And, after the dust settled, you take a look and you realize you beat a perennial powerhouse at the Graveyard. And any way you can get out of there with a win, you come away and you got to feel good about it.
Well, you got to feel real good about it. I mean, we talked about the 6 losses that Reigns had the other night. They didn't lose any one of those games to a team that we call a slouch. You know, their losses this year came to all really good opponents. And I think the one thing that you could probably say is true about Reigns is as the season went on, they got better and better and better. And no doubt about it, that's one of the best defenses we've seen all year. We've really seen 2 really good defenses back-to-back now. Swanee's defense played the Wildcats very tough, put us into some situations that we hadn't been in other than the Bowls game maybe. And then Reigns did the same thing. I mean, Reigns really tested every piece of the offensive performance that we had and pushed it to the limit. And honestly, John, the Wildcats fortunate to come away with that win. You know, a couple of big 4th down plays in overtime to get the win. So, I mean, you take a win any way you can get it, but really fortunate, but a good win, quality win for the Cats.
You know, we talk about Reigns' defense, and they're very, very good. The Swanee game, and I think Coach Mays will agree with this, you take away the 4th quarter, and we pretty much punched them in the mouth. I mean, it was a dominant game for the Cats in the Swanee till the 4th quarter. The great thing the other night, and I think we said it on the air, our bad quarter the other night came in the 3rd quarter.
You said that, yep.
So we got a chance to redeem ourselves in the 4th quarter and make things happen and take over. Defensively, we're talking about Reigns. How about the Cats' defense the other night?
Absolutely. Yep.
We got beat over the top a couple times. We can't have that happen. But, other than that, they didn't do a whole lot on the ground. Front 7 played really, really well. And, the back half, DeHaven Clark, Ronnie Ellis, Jamil Jones, and Carlos Jefferson had a great game. Those guys came up with some big plays. Reigns went up top a lot. So looking back, they were probably going over the top on us. They were probably 3 for 20 the other night, but those 3 were big, obviously. But I know Coach Mays was not happy after the game offensively, but we're averaging 30-something points a game, man. We're 9-2, and it was a genius move to bring the guy up here, and it's proven big dividends. 30-something points a game, and I talked to Coach Mays today about this. There were 2 anomalies the other night that just haven't happened in the 2 years. I coached with them last year. I saw it firsthand every day in practice. Seen it this year in every game. we've never had bad snaps before. We've never had, and a few were on Carson, and Carson will be the first. He's a gamer. He'll be the first to tell you.
That's right.
He didn't look a few in, but there were probably 10 or 11 missed snaps. So they'll clean that up this week. Probably got a few reps in today. And the other thing is, one of our most consistent places over the last 2 years, the offensive line played terrible the other night. Let's call it the way it is. When you've got the mesh point going and you've got two defensive linemen at the mesh point, that makes play calling a little bit tough. And I told you the other night, you asked me, you said, Coach, it's 3rd and 10. What are you calling here? I said, if they got two guys in the backfield, my play bag's empty. And, so that'll get cleaned up. Was it one guy that played bad? Was it two guys that played bad? Or was it a combination of this guy on this play, this guy on it? Anyway, there's two strong senior leaders up front, DeMonte Gibson and Ross Crummy. It's a challenge to them Tuesday and Wednesday. They get in pads. Those guys can't let it be lackluster days. They got to be senior leaders and take charge up there.
Go take charge and go see a good offensive line performance this week. And I agree with you on most of those points, no doubt about it. The center snaps, the exchanges, those things have to be. You've got to make those. There's no room for error on center exchanges. There's just not. And whether it's on the quarterback or whether it's on the center, either way, you got to clean that up. So that's one area the other night where we were in several positions where we gained 7, 8, 9 yards on first down, and then on second down we went backwards, 6 yards, 5 yards, 4-yard loss, whatever. Those type of situations put you in that spot where now you're looking at 3rd and long, where you should have had a drive going forward and capitalized on that first down.
Let's talk about perseverance, though, and overcoming adversity.
That's right.
We're talking 11 missed exchanges on the snap, and we scored 33 points against Reigns at the Graveyard. So how good is this team?
Pretty good.
If we clean up, I mean, the Swanee game, again, we had a sloppy fourth quarter. The other night, a few things that maybe we weren't ready mentally, our guys up front, with just how good Reigns was up front. That happens sometimes.
It does.
You just don't realize how good those guys actually are up front, or how quick. And before you know it, you're kind of in a shell shock mode. But they'll get that fixed. Friday night is huge. Pine Forest, we went over, and that was kind of like the Swanee game a couple weeks ago. It was kind of like the Pine Forest game last year. I thought we just slobber knocked those guys, and all of a sudden they threw a few balls over the top to beat us at the end of the game. But we dominated those guys, and there's got to be a little redemption for those guys that went over last year. To go back over there and take care of business this year, and then we're looking at paradise after that.
Yeah, I agree. That was a tough one. That was a tough one last year. We were up 14, I think, in the fourth quarter, so a game that we basically had pretty much dominated, like you said, and then just like lightning struck, and there was all kind of things that happened bad, and that can happen in a football game, and momentum is such a crazy thing in football, right? I mean, and that's kind of what we talked about with the 4-game stretch the Wildcats had after the Bowls game. So you had a chance with playing West Nassau and playing Bishop Kenny and finishing up with Swanee where you could have gotten on a little run. So I don't know if some of the effort the other night, and effort's probably the wrong word, but some of the performance the other night that came from having that week off with Panama City Arnold not playing. You go Swanee, you get the loss. That's deflating somewhat on senior night at home. They lost by 2 in a game that they should have won. And then you lose. You don't lose the game. You win the game against Arnold, but you don't play the game. So you get a week off there, and then you go another week and you haven't played. So, that momentum piece wasn't there for the team going into that game the other night.
One other thing too that I think needs to be mentioned is our special teams have been pretty doggone good. The other night we were pinned a couple times. And one of the most underrated guys, and I'm going to say it with Coach sitting here, one of the most underrated guys on that team is Brian Mays. I mean, you only notice the long snapper when there's bad snaps. He's been money for 2 years. I mean, and right at the waist every time with the snaps. They get back there. You know, we were pinned deep. I think Jamil was probably 8 yards deep, you know, from where they were coming. And special teams have been solid this year. And the other night, we didn't do anything great on special teams, but we didn't do anything bad. So I think that's been a point of contention that has made this team successful, is we're pretty consistent on special teams this year. Obviously, the coaching from the previous year is upgraded.
Oh, upgraded. I thought you were going to say carried over. But
No,
yeah,
it's upgraded.
Upgraded from a year ago. No, listen, I'm with you. Special teams have to be solid, right? You know, I went through those years, and Bobby Johnson and I argued about it a few times about the fact that, you know, sometimes he didn't send a guy back to return a punt. And how crucial is it in a game where you can't let the punt roll for 20 yards back there? And you got a guy like Jamil back there. He's, you know, for the most part, he's stopping the ball, whether it's a fair catch or whatever. You don't let that thing hit the ground and roll 20 yards, because that's just a killer. And we did that for years. And you know, some coaches have different philosophies on things, and I totally agree with you. Special teams being solid is what you need. It doesn't have to necessarily overwhelm you with kicks out of the back of the end zone for touchbacks and all that other stuff. It's just the style of play, and if you're accomplishing what you're trying to accomplish on special teams, that's so important. But
one last thing from me, and I was very impressed the other night. Our defensive front, we rotated about 6 or 7 guys through there. They played technique, good technique. We were getting a hat to the V of the neck of the offensive lineman, reading their blocks. One time I know Cade Richardson tackle block down. You know, he had his nose right in his ear hole, closed down, made a play down the line. Things that go unnoticed a lot of times, but did a great job. Our linebackers were fitting the holes well. Where they needed to get to, they were getting to. Connor South, Toby Kinghorn, and Camilo Rollins had a big game. And then, you know, you throw in some of the young dudes like John Gibson and Orlando Holland will be just a beast.
Orlando Holland again.
And then the old steady guys, you know, Zane, Wes, who, you know, you just don't run between the tackles much without Wes Avera being involved. And they just had and so, you know, Deshaun Larry in there, who's it's his first year on the defensive line. He's done a steady job. So we're looking good up front, and we got a lot of depth up there.
Yeah, we've called Orlando Holland's name a lot the last couple of weeks. But, yeah, I mean, listen, if anyone's listening to the show thinking that maybe we started off being negative, there were a lot of positive things.
Negative, it's a factual.
Just factual observation.
Nothing but the facts.
Yeah, there were a lot of positive things to take from the game, too, the other night.
Absolutely.
And with the win, you're moving on to the third round, and you get a chance to go and play this week. I thought given all the adversity that he faced the other night, I thought Carson Crawford played tough, you know. Carson Crawford,
I said this earlier in the year, and I'll stick by it to this day. He is one of the best dual-threat quarterbacks that's ever come through Baker County High School, if not the best. I'll put him up against anybody that they want to throw up. There's been some pretty big-time quarterbacks come through here. I'll put him up with all of them. He just, you know, 3rd and 4, he carries the ball. If he gets stopped at the line, he's going to get the 4 yards one way or another. And then, you know, and you got Cameron Crawford, who these seniors this year are a strong group of not necessarily leading by vocal ways, but by the way they go about it on the field. Scooby Graham.
Toughness, yeah.
You know, I mean, that dude, you know, I know people get tired of me talking about him, but when you've rushed for 4,000 yards in 3 years, you know, and I still owe him a steak dinner, by the way. I forgot about that. I just got to wait till my wife gets a second job.
I don't get tired of talking about Scooby. He's one of my favorite guys on the team.
He's just a dude. But this senior class is strong. And when you talk about underclassmen, there's a pretty good group nucleus coming back also.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, there's a lot of guys coming back, and they've got a lot of experience from some of these games that we've played this year to learn from next year. This has just been one of those crazy years, but with all things considered, getting the season in with everything else that's happening from a pandemic perspective, getting this season in, and now finding ourselves in the third round of the playoffs with a chance to get a win and come back and have a home game in round 4, great opportunity. So, yeah, I appreciate it, John. We'll get John Staples back on the air in just a moment, but I'm going to turn it over here and bring in the head coach, Kevin Mays, so we can talk about that performance from the other night, because there's some things within the game that we want to talk about for sure. I want to take just a second and thank Oscar Gray for helping us out here Monday night show, Dependable Heating and Air Conditioning. Oscar Gray, longtime Wildcat supporter, and we appreciate Dependable Heating and Air Conditioning and all the sponsors that make Wildcat Radio possible, and just want to give him a shout-out. So, Oscar, if you're listening in, appreciate everything you do for Wildcat football. And just get a minute here to talk Wildcat football on Monday night. And, Coach, I mentioned it a moment ago, if you're playing in Thanksgiving week, that's a good thing.
That's a goal that all of us high school coaches kind of set and say, hey, if we're playing during Thanksgiving, that means we've had a year to be proud of. And the one thing I will correct you on, because I didn't realize it honestly until this weekend when I really started looking at it, I guess there's 6 rounds this year.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
And it was, I hadn't paid attention to it because it had been 5 rounds I've done this 23 years now. It's been 5 rounds for that. And so I'd looked into it, and obviously that, I guess our first Arnold game was a play-in game, I guess is what they called it.
Yeah, right. You're right.
So, but anyways,
well, they let everybody in the region in, so you had to have an extra week, and you're right. Yeah.
So they're, so we've got obviously a few more games to get to where we want to get to, but we're going to take it one game at a time. And I sat here and enjoyed listening to you guys talk, and it was Friday night was one I'll remember for a long time.
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, listen, so before I even get into the game, just, you're a guy that comes from Central Florida, so I don't know how much you knew about the Rains Vikings beforehand, but we talked about it on the air Friday night when I let in, to start the game. The Graveyard, whether the looks of the stadium are glamorous or not, the Graveyard is a place that's got a ton of tradition. I mean, Rains Vikings, they're one of the only public schools in Jacksonville to win state championships, okay? There's been plenty of Jacksonville schools to win state championships, but they're typically private schools. Yeah. You're talking about Bowles, you're talking about Trinity. But public school-wise, you don't see it very often, and you don't see it very often anyway, especially up North Florida way. But tradition-wise, Coach, did you realize that Rains, the Vikings, they've had the most NFL talent of any school in the First Coast area ever? And we're talking about guys going way back. Harold Carmichael played for the Philadelphia Eagles. Brian Dawkins played for the Philadelphia Eagles. Lito Shepard, the Gaffneys, Derek Gaffney, and then Jabbar Gaffney later on came and played for the Florida Gators. I mean, the list goes on and on. I could sit here and name several more, but I mean, I just wondered from your perspective if you had any idea coming from Central Florida about the tradition that was in that place before we went there.
Yeah, being in high school football, you've heard about them. And Cocoa being one of my biggest rivals from where I came from, they came up here and played Rains. I want to say Rains beat them a couple years ago in the state championship game.
They did.
No, when you hear Rains, I mean, at least where I've come from, everybody still knows who Rains is when you say those names. That's one of those names in the state that kind of carry a little weight with them. Now, I'd never been there before, so the Graveyard was a new experience to me. DJ on the sideline.
Oh yeah, it's big time. Food trucks, DJs. Well, I mean, they take it serious at Rains, and like I said, I mean, the stadium's not the most glamorous stadium in the world, but there's been a lot of, when I say good football players, I mean some really good football players that played football in that field.
They had some real good ones on the field.
They did. Right. Yeah, they did. But I'm a Philadelphia Eagle fan in real life, and so I've seen players from Rains go to play for the Eagles. Lito Shepard and Brian Dawkins both played together in the secondary at one time, and then I remember Harold Carmichael from when I was a kid. He played with Ron Jaworski, and he came from right there at Rains, and then Jabbar Gaffney, of course, playing for the Gators. And anyway, so a lot of history, a lot of tradition, and I think sometimes that gets lost on people because I think people forget those things sometimes. But man, just being in that stadium sometimes, that's a big deal. There's been a lot of really good talent that come through there.
No,
and getting a win there is huge.
Those places are tough to go into just because they do carry a mystique about those type places and those teams. So, I coached at Palm Bay High years ago, and they went to, I think we went to 5 Final Fours in a row and won 2 state championships, played Lincoln every year. That Palm Bay, that was 22 years ago or 18 years ago. And they still carry a little name about themselves because it was a place to go into back in the day. So, those names are certain names that just carry some weight around, and they were one of them. And it was a neat experience to go in there.
Well, it's one of those things when you start talking about a team. You look at the record, you say, "Hey, this team's got 6 losses. We should go and wear them out." Well, it's just not that way with every team. They played some really tough competition before we got there, and I think you told me this earlier on before we got on the air. They got better. They got better as the season went on, and that was a really good football team we played Friday night.
Oh, it was, and that was to me the fastest defense, and this includes bowls.
Mm-hmm.
The fastest defense that we have seen that we saw all year.
Yeah, I'd have to 100% agree. Bowls defense just sound fundamentally.
Yeah, they fit right every play and everything.
Yeah, Raines just flies to the football, and how many plays were they in the backfield before we could even get the handoff?
Well, and we knew looking into it, number 9 that played the nose guard and number 15 the defensive end. We kind of knew they were going to give us some fits. Just obviously we didn't know it was going to be that bad. And we did. We I heard you guys talking about it. We had some issues. I want to say we counted 13 today missed center exchanges.
13.
And
wow.
some of it on the center, some of it on Carson, some of it, it's just a whole bunch of different things, and we haven't had that. And we did, like he said. I said they owe me 100 snaps per day up until Friday of just making sure that we get that back to where we had it. And I don't know if it was the pressure they were getting up front, or there's a bunch of different things to play into it. But obviously that was bad, and we're going to work this week to get that all cleaned up.
Well, let's talk about the game just a little bit, because the Wildcats found themselves down 7-0 early, and it only took 3 plays. They go back, or it may have been 2 plays, but they go deep over the top, hit a home run for a touchdown early on. Later on in the game, they hit a deep ball over the top for a touchdown, and they scored 3 touchdowns in regulation. Our defense didn't surrender a drive the entire game. But, and you're going to have that from time to time where guys beat you over the top or whatever. And you feel like with your offense you can score enough points to stay with that if your defense is playing that solid. It turned out good at the end the other night, but just overall defensive performance I thought was solid.
Oh, I thought our defense played. Our defense to me won the game. They played outside of some deep balls. They played very, very good the other night, and I give them and Coach Canada and his staff a bunch of credit, and they did a great job.
We continue to talk about these guys. Coach Staples talked about the guys that we know are going to perform. Wes Avera right up front, and the guys on the ends. I thought Cade Richardson played well the other night. I thought Zane Mobley did too. They were in on a lot of tackles. But then those guys that we've just been talking about week in, week out. Connor South is in, seems like on just about every tackle. Toby Kinghorn, most of the time, except for on the one play. Most of the time when Toby Kinghorn gets a hold of you, you're coming down. Mm-hmm. He's tackling the guy. I still don't know how the quarterback got away from him on the scramble play in overtime, but we'll talk about that later. But
that was Orlando.
Was that Orlando? Okay, I thought it was Toby for a moment, but yeah, so Toby played fantastic, and then you've got the cornerback play. We had another interception the other night. We had 2 interceptions the other night.
And I feel bad, you want to sit there and one of the coaches grabbed Jamil after that interception and said, "You got to knock that down."
Yeah.
But you can't tell a kid a ball's coming. You know what I mean? It's tough for a kid to do that. And it's tough to be upset at him because the smart play would have been just knock that down. We get the ball at the 40. But it's
Well, I told
for a pick. It's tough. It's tough for him not to take it.
Same thing I told John on the radio Friday night. I said, if I'm a kid, I'm back there. I'm because I want to make an interception.
Yeah.
But anybody watching the game is saying knock it down.
Yeah.
And that's a huge difference in field position.
Yeah.
And then we end up punting from deep in the end zone. So that's something you learn from, right? That's something you learn from. But 2 interceptions. I think DeHaven had the other one, and that's a guy. DeHaven Clark's another guy that, I mean, what a phenomenal year he's had.
I wish he'd have got in on that interception. I mean, Scooby ended up getting the touchdown, but that was because of DeHaven's pick and return. And
that's right.
That's right. You look at him, and you're like, oh, this guy can't do too much just because of his stature, but that kid plays with all heart and plays tough every down.
Yeah, we had him on the air earlier this year. Good kid, man, I tell you. And he's been all over the field on defense. Orlando Holland's a guy that we've been talking about a lot lately. We just mentioned him. I'm trying to I hate to leave anybody out. Carlos Jefferson's played tough on the other side. Jamil is
the only guy from what you guys, listening to what you guys had said was and that's who I was going to play. He came in and gave us some great reps. Was Garrett Kane?
Garrett Kane, yeah.
He came in and gave us some good reps in there. And, Garrett's going to do whatever it is we ask him to do. And he comes in and plays 100 miles an hour.
Garrett's one of my buddies. I've known him since he was just a little kid. And the second half of this season, he's really shown up. I mean, whether it's been on special teams, different places here, he's made a lot of hard hits out there. And just he's been in on a lot of plays. And when you see those guys around the ball all the time, I mean, Camilo Rollins and Toby and those guys, they're going to be around the ball all the time. But it's been really good to see Garrett playing the way he's been playing.
Well, and, obviously we'll just get into it because obviously I heard the crowd behind me.
Let's get into it.
I want to give credit to Pacey Holton.
Oh, yeah.
That kid hadn't taken a live snap in a game until what we call in the second round of the playoffs against Reigns. That's the first live field goal that kid's ever kicked or extra point, and he did what he was supposed to do. The one that got blocked before regulation, that wasn't necessarily his fault. Those guys blocked it off the edge with speed, which is kind of had me question whether or not to go for 2, which I did try. And obviously hindsight's 20/20, and we could have kicked it and won it right there. But it is what it is, and we gave him a chance there at the end, and he kicked it right down the middle. And he's a kid that played JV for us. Surprisingly, said he couldn't kick or didn't want to kick for JV, wanted to be a receiver. I saw him out there on the soccer field and said, why don't you come kick for us, or at least try. And he did a good job the other night. I mean, for that kind of pressure to be put on a kid that's really never done that before, that's pretty neat to see that.
No, I thought it was fantastic. And Clark Bryant got some credit for it for a while because on this roster that I'll show you, I told some guys yesterday,
that looks like from week 1. Huh?
Well, I was telling so Gary Pelham and Greg Harrison and I, we all worked Jaguar games on Sunday. So as I'm going to the game yesterday, I'm talking to Greg, and I said, halfway through the season, I don't look at a roster again because I know everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, typically, week 1, week 2, you've already got everybody's names down pat for sure. But halfway through the season, I never look at a roster again for the home team. For the visiting team, I'm always looking at the roster. But the other night we had a kid kicking number 30, and so I just go back and pull my roster out, and Clark Bryant's listed. And so I gave him credit for the first 2 extra points, but we got corrected on that. So Pacey, great job. And he had some, the one thing you judge a kicker by, when you see the velocity that comes off the ball, when he kicked that first extra point, it kind of rocketed off his foot. That's a good thing. And so good. I'm glad we got his name right on the radio, and he played a good game. Coach, listen, second guessing is part of football, dude. You got a Twitter account, right?
I do.
There's 9 million second guessers that live out there on Twitter, and they want to question everything a coach does. You just got a kick blocked. You don't know if they're going to come with that same type of intensity and block your kick again. Maybe going for 2 was the right call.
If you remember, I don't know if John said it earlier. Last week we were 4 for 4. And we ran the same power read type play. It's just 15 tried to take the handoff instead of our running back.
Well, if you make it, everybody in the stands would have said that was a great call. That's just the way it is, man. I love.
That would have been one that would have bothered me though.
Yeah.
Just because just who I am and stuff like that.
Well, listen,
just for me making that call.
I love Wildcat fans. Love them. Love everybody that sits up in the stands. But listen, you can't always be right. One time you're going to be right, one time you're going to be wrong, and it just is what it is. I mean, sometimes in the flow of a game, a coach makes a decision, goes one way. It may not have turned out right, but It may have.
Hey, we won.
And you won the game. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I take a lot of that with a grain of salt. And most of the time, when you talk to folks later on, they realize that, in the heat of the moment, you say all kind of things. But it is what it is. But I thought it worked out well. Pacey Holton, great game for him. Congratulations to him. Yeah, on the one block, that was tough. But, chance to win right there, chance to win the game at the end of regulation in a game that we had, you talk about football, you talk about 9 lives, a cat having 9 lives, and the Wildcats we had 15 lives the other night, Coach, because...
Well, I still don't, and obviously 2 touchdowns in overtime, which were 4th and longs, and how they worked out is what it is. But
yeah,
the fact that I felt like I had my teeth kicked in all night as the offensive play caller and how we scored 33 points against them, I have no idea. I still look back and don't really understand how that happened, because I do feel like we were just beat up all night. Baker had one good long run, but it was. I mean, we would go, 1st and 10, and we'd go 6-7 yards, and then we'd have a bad snap, or the snap would hit the center's foot or hit his butt, or Carson, would mishandle the ball a little bit, and just stuff that we hadn't done before. So I feel, I tried to tell the coaches afterwards, because they felt, they were, we could have, should have done this. It wouldn't have been that close, blah, blah, blah. Like, hey, listen, as you get older, you understand a win's a win. Let's move on.
Move on.
We're playing, and other teams aren't.
Let's take the positives from the game and take those with us and use those as momentum and confidence builders. Listen, here's the thing. It's probably the most un-Wildcat thing I've seen all year. We get 8 or 9 yards. We're typically cashing in. We're getting that first down and keeping the chains moving. The other night, it just something would happen. And it wasn't the same thing every time. It wasn't the same thing. This drive, you'd have a bad snap. The next drive, some guy breaks through their line, makes a big play for a loss. It's football. You're playing against a team on the other side that's a good football team, so they're trying to do that to you, right?
I don't want to bring something up, and I'll let when John gets back on. You guys can talk about it. I'll just save this for them. What do you guys think about their chain crew?
Well, let me tell you, we should have Joe Crawford on to talk about that. I heard Joe Crawford. Normally in the stands with my headsets on, I can't hear what the fans say, and somebody will ask me later on, "Did you hear what so and so said?" And I said, "No, I honestly didn't, because I normally can't hear." But I heard Joe all night. But Joe was absolutely right. I mean,
if they'd got a first down on that one, that would have been. That was awful.
Probably the worst. Yeah, I tried to explain that one to Gary and Greg yesterday, because the ball was across the goal line. The yard line to gain was across the 50, right?
Yeah.
And by the time it came back, it was on the 50.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, we were 2 inches. They were 2 inches short. Well, it should have been a yard and a half or something of that nature.
Well,
it's unbelievable.
In the playoffs, they shouldn't let kids do the chains. And if you remember, and I kind of talked to the AD today at Pine Forest. Remember the issue we had with the chains last year at Pine Forest? We did. Yeah. We had issues with guys over there doing stuff. So. Well,
I think John the other night made several great points on the radio, and I'll give him credit for it. The issue I had wasn't with the kids working the chains. The line judge wasn't paying attention.
No.
He had no clue what was happening behind him, and it was horrible. It was horrible. And, luckily it didn't end up costing us the game, but it could have. It could have. This guy got barbecue sandwiches going around. Yeah. He's not going to turn that one down. So yeah, I mean, fortunately it didn't cost us the game, but definitely something that if you have a chance to, I don't know how it works with the high school officiating crews or whatever, how you have a chance to give feedback on things like that, but that was atrocious. You can't let that kind of thing happen.
No, you can't.
Not in a playoff game.
It's frustrating. Then they get upset when we get frustrated at it.
Yeah.
And they think that we're being, overbearing or whatever to them.
No, it was horrible. I mean, there were not only on that drive you're talking about, but there were many times during the game where the referee was signaling first down and these guys didn't move. There were other times when Raines was 3 yards short of the first down, and they're trying to take the chains on down like they've already gotten the first down. And you just, you got to. I'm thankful for the chain crew we have, right?
Yeah, no, they do, and they do a good job.
They take it seriously,
and people don't realize maybe some of the expenses that the athletics has to take. I mean, the bill for those refs, our bill for the Arnold game was going to be almost $900. And those guys are making good money, and you
You want a good
to at least watch the chains.
If you're paying for something, you want it to be worth. But what happened to the day? Like our chain crew here in Baker County, they actually take pride in the fact that they're a chain crew, right? So I just wonder what happened to the fact that some of these other schools don't have that same thing. But that's a story for another day. We'll get past it, and hopefully Pine Forest we won't have that issue again. But any other things you'd like to point out from Friday night's game? Because I want to talk about Pine Forest for a few minutes.
Just the heart that our team had to stay in the game. I mean, at no point did you necessarily see our guys getting down or getting upset. And it's a hard thing to judge from this team because this team does not show a lot of emotion. I mean, they get down there before the game.
They don't.
I was just talking to Sean McIntyre before the game, and he's like, well, you guys were probably pretty jacked to play the game. I was like, you have no idea with this team. You don't know if they're jacked or not because they're just like, all right, coach, let's go get them. And they go out and get them. They go play hard. And they never faltered, and I think they all believed that we were going to win that game. And they did a great job. And obviously you didn't know it was over till they went for two there at the end, and Haven slipped his little block there and made a tackle right there at the end. And it was and again, I hate getting into things, but did you see the Canadian motion they had for that touchdown? Canadian League.
Oh, he was 2 yards. He was 2 yards downfield. I called that on the radio. I mean, he was gone, and the line judge is standing right there. I have no idea how he missed that. But your receiver's going to make a touchdown catch if he gets 2 yards. Oh, that always cracked me up about Canadian football games because it's so hard to follow. Because this guy's, but yeah, that guy he if it wasn't 2 yards, it was at least a yard. I mean, he was off the line and he got a head start, and that was unfortunate also because overall I don't know how well they officiated the game the other night. I know the chains were terrible. As far as officiating goes, I don't know how well they officiated or how bad they officiated it. You could tell me that, but that play in that situation, you could not allow that to happen. You can't.
No, that was the obvious one. I didn't think they did that bad of a job. I mean, every game they've missed where we've pulled our guard and the defensive end has cut him. They've missed that every game, but it's overall, I didn't think they didn't do that bad of a job.
Well, two things, and just from your, as a head coach, as you grow and learn and have more experience, you'll do things differently probably based on what you learn. But how much impact do you think not playing the Arnold game had on our performance the other night?
Any bye week, I think, is tough to come off of.
It's tough, yeah.
Yeah, because you especially at this point. I mean, you get into it, and you don't want to do a bunch of banging around with guys because you'd be upset if you banged up a shoulder or a twisted ankle or stuff like that. So, yeah, I would have rather played that Arnold game just to keep our kids kind of in the normal routine. So, I think this week will be a little more polished. Like I said, offensively at least, we did not look good the other night.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same mentality, In college, it's one thing, but in the pros, they talk about, if a team's already clinched the playoffs, they sit guys for the end. Professional football, a little different deal. These guys know what's at stake. They come, and it's a professional thing. In college, you don't see that happen because you need those guys playing. You need them to continue to get the reps, and so I think playing last week would have been a big advantage for us, or at least helped us with some momentum. Now, the other question, Thanksgiving week, how are you handling practice this week, and what's our schedule look like as we go into it? Because obviously with the pandemic and everything else occurring and no school this week, it's a different situation. But are you handling practice the same way you would basically in a year?
The schedule's the same, except that we're practicing in the mornings. We went at 8:30 this morning to about 10:30, and that's what we'll do the next 2 days. We'll be a little longer tomorrow because we got to get in and watch some film on Pine Forest, but Wednesday will be 8:30 to 10:30ish, and then Thursday we'll do our normal walkthrough. You practice on Thanksgiving, like we said before. Not many teams get to do that, but yeah, we will practice Thanksgiving morning 8:30 to probably 9:30. Just do our normal walkthrough, get the guys together, make sure we do the same things, and then we're going to meet at school at 10:30 on Friday. Do our little thing we do in the gym and give out uniforms, let the boys start getting packed, feed them. And then we're going to get on the buses about 12 o'clock.
Well, that sounds like a good plan, and I'll be sometime on I-10 myself that afternoon. But 3 of the past 4 years now we've had to travel to Pensacola during the playoffs. Maybe we could, hopefully that'll shift around in the next couple of years so we don't have to keep doing it.
Again, the AD part of things, and I just kind of think people should be aware of this type of stuff. I mean, for us to take the football team and the cheerleaders over there, just in buses, it's cost us about $10,000.
Mm.
You know, so people kind of wonder where money goes and stuff like that. Well, I mean, this stuff's expensive to do, to make this stuff, and then we got to feed them 3 or 4 times, and it's not cheap to do this kind of stuff.
No.
You know, especially you know, when you lost income and stuff this year with COVID and games, and we lost the playoff game income and stuff like that. So it is tough.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. But maybe with a win, we can get some playoff income coming in next week. Yep. That'd be nice.
The next 2 games would be at home.
Okay, so the next 2 would be at home.
If I read it right, but it's I'm pretty sure definitely the next game's at home.
Yeah. Well, for the last 4 years, so we went over and we've had to play West Florida in 2017 before we went to the state championship game. So that was a trip to Pensacola. Last year we went over there to face Pine Forest. That was a trip to Pensacola, and now we've got another one. So they get old. They get old driving to Pensacola.
We were big Swanee fans.
Oh, yeah, I was too. I was listening to the game on the way home Friday night from Rains and had a chance to kind of catch the tail end of it, and they scored with about a minute to go in the game and kicked the extra point to win the game. So there again, in high school football, an extra point kills you.
It can, one way or another. And theirs got blocked watching their film. When they went up 20-14, theirs got blocked. And obviously you go down there and, you know, and that's to sit there and you talk to those guys every day, you know, that 1 point can be a difference. And when you have to chase those
Absolutely.
When you have to chase those points, it's tough.
Yeah, chasing that extra points. It's a lot of people just they underestimate it. You know, they don't think about how critical those things are. But how many times do you watch a football game on Saturday or Sunday and you say, "Oh, that's going to come back to haunt a team"?
Yep.
You know, I mean, it's so much stuff. If you want to know the value of an extra point, look at the lines in Vegas for point spreads on games. They always have a half. They always have a half a point in there.
Yeah.
And people will say, "Why is there a half a point in there?" Well, watch the games, watch the outcomes, and go back and look at it, and you tell me how many of them are determined by that half a point. There's more than you would think. Right, Coach?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about Pine Forest just for a moment. Last year we had a chance to go over there and play at Pine Forest. If I recall, they started talking from the time we walked on the field over there in pregame warm-ups. So
they were, and, you know, the funny thing is John was there with me. The AD came up to us afterwards and said, "You know what? I'm sick of the way these guys act. They will be let go as soon as they lose in the playoffs." He backed it up. They let them go, so they have a new coaching staff.
Oh, there you go.
Over there.
There you go.
So, but you know, Swanee said that they walked into a rowdy area.
Yeah, sure.
And it's not a real good setup. I mean, you have to, when you leave, you have to walk through their fans, through their parking lot for us to get back to the locker room. So it's not a real good setup for us, but hopefully we can go over this year and be better results.
If I recall correctly, last year's game was pretty cold over there, right?
It was.
Yeah, pretty cold. This year probably won't be quite as cold, so that'll be different. But we had a 2-touchdown lead late in that ball game last year. Couldn't quite close it out. I know that game haunted you until this season started.
Yeah, we were 28-14. I want to say 7-8 minutes left. We kicked off. They returned a kick. Then I want to say we went 3 and out, and they threw like a quick slant, and then tied it up, and then
just like that,
and then
boom,
threw,
boom,
and then threw with a minute or 2 left, threw another pass, which they had completed and won the game 35.
Yeah, it was like lightning. Just like it just when you think you've got things wrapped up and you're heading to the next round, you know. So that was unfortunate, but team-wise, so last year's team, obviously they had some speed. They were able to do some things in a very fast fashion as they did in the fourth quarter of that game. But what do you see film-wise? Are we looking at the same type of team as we had last year?
Their quarterback's not as mobile. Doesn't seem to be as mobile. He looks like he should be, but he doesn't. You don't see him run the ball like. They have a little number 8, little slot back that can fly. The biggest concerns I have is they have, and John will remember, Big Puda. Was that his name? Big Puda. He was a defensive tackle last year. Well, his 2 younger brothers must be there because they have 2 big, strong defensive tackles this year. I want to say they're both like 6'3", like 310, and not just big sloppy guys, big guys that can move and push people around. So that'll obviously be a little bit of a challenge for us. You watch them, and you don't want to say this because you never know what's going to win, but Rains looks scarier on film.
Well, I was going to say, can they be any scarier than the Rains defense? You know,
they're not fast. they're not whole team fast like Raines was.
Yeah.
You know, Raines was fast at every position. They're going to play similar kind of defense. They're going to get in our face and try to do some things, and you know, we're working on a couple of different things this week to try to fix those type things. But you know, they're a good team, and offensively, they're a 4-wide type team, and they will get into a 2 tight end set and try to just pound you a little bit, which we kind of feel if they try to do that, that'll play into us. I think our run defense is really good. So they're a good team. It's, you know, I think we need to be able to handle the trip, which I think last year's experience, most of these guys obviously were on that trip, handle the trip of getting over there. You know, I've had people ask, why aren't we staying the night? It's only 4.5 hours. And, you know, what if we wake up at 8 o'clock Friday morning, what are we going to have the kids go to do? Swanee said they tried it. They couldn't find a movie theater or a bowling alley, or they couldn't find anything for kids to do. So what do they do all day? You know, I'd rather me have control of them instead of sitting in hotel rooms or something like that, not knowing what's going on.
Yeah, it's just a bus ride. They're used to bus rides.
Yeah.
It's just a longer bus ride, right?
Yeah. And we're going to, like I said, we're going to stop a couple times, get them off the bus, and, you know, we'll feed them at some point. And it should be a good trip. I hope we come home a lot better than we did last year.
Well, every one of those kids has a phone, I'm sure. So download a movie or two on your phone, kids, and watch it on the way over there, and just enjoy it. Enjoy the ride. You know, charter bus rides aren't too bad. It's not like the Yellow Bird.
No. That's what we talked about it today. We try to tell those kids today, you know, especially the seniors, they need to take in and enjoy every bit of this, because they don't think about it. But you take, you know, all of us sitting here right now, all of us would go back and like to play 1 or 2 more reps.
Absolutely.
You know, and when it's, and football is the one sport, when you turn 18, you're pretty much done. For most kids, you're done at 18 years old, you know, and you don't get a chance to do it anymore.
Yeah, well, talk about those 9 lives. You know,
John still talks to me about his days with quarterbacks.
Listen, we rode together to the game Friday night, and I watched film. He's got 16 millimeter film from the 60s or whenever that was. He was actually very nimble. I was watching him.
He just said he beat Point Forest in the state championship game. So
and I learned yesterday. Well, Gary Pelham, you know, that's where his coaching career started. He's a Pensacola guy, so he started out at Pine Forest before he came over here. It was either that he started coaching there or he played there. I can't remember which one it was, but I think he started coaching there. So, but he's a Pensacola guy, so he, you know, in Gary's mind, Pine Forest was always the staple. They were the team to beat over there. Now, you know, years later, now there's lots of teams over that way now, but you know, that was the way it used to be. But yeah, I got a chance to watch some Staples highlight film the other night. You'll have to check that out. He's got it right there on his phone. He can show you before you leave tonight. But look,
it runs in a loop at the bus barn.
Look, I've never doubted Staples' credentials. I mean, he obviously has some outstanding credentials. He led his team to a state championship as a quarterback. He's coached district championship baseball teams here, so I never doubted.
We talked about it earlier, and they've kind of fallen off. But Merritt Island was that team back in the day, and it still carries that name when you say it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just one of them names. It's kind of like we were talking about earlier. It's just one of those names that carry a little weight with it.
Yeah, I'll never question his credentials. He's definitely been successful at a lot of different levels. So I was happy to watch that film, and I was surprised. He was fast. He was a fast quarterback. He ran around the corner a couple of times. Now he got hit. He even said it. He got hit hard. The hardest hit. I think he said it was the hardest hit he faced as a quarterback on the sideline, and so he got stuck a couple of times. But
it might have been by Hodges.
He could really run. But anyway, listen, Coach. Best of luck Friday night. You know, we talked about the 9 lives of the Cats. I mean, did Cameron and Scooby, have we practiced that play in practice?
To hit everybody. Scooby last.
The last touchdown.
No, Scooby's never been out there at that.
I was going to say, were they even supposed to be in the same area?
Yes and no. I mean, they weren't supposed to be that close. But hey, on the scoreboard, it doesn't matter. You know, you draw it up. It got us the points on the scoreboard.
It looked like it was a design play, and I was totally surprised because I was already about to call the play incomplete, and then Scooby called it. Yeah, okay. So John called me out. I think I called it incomplete, and then I mean, unbelievable play. I mean, but that's what it takes sometimes to make a big run in the playoffs. Sometimes you got to have some unbelievable plays that you didn't expect, right? And,
I don't mind being lucky.
I went to hunt this morning, which is why I've got the camouflage on. And as I was talking to one of the guys who was going in to hunt where I was going in this morning, he said that thing. I'd rather be lucky than skilled, especially when it comes to that. But didn't work out for me today. But either way, either way. All right, Coach. Well, best of luck Friday night. We'll be there. Game time Friday night.
7:30
Central
time.
7:30 Central. So if you're listening to the Wildcat football game here on the East Coast, I'll still get the text at 7:30 our time over there. They'll ask me where's the game. But if you're listening to the game here, don't forget it's 8:30 here. So some of you might need to get a nap in the afternoon.
Yeah. So
make sure you can listen. But we'll be on the air Friday night, 8:30 Eastern.
I told my buddies texted me saying he was listening back in Vieira, a good friend of mine, Todd Shanaville, that was coach for me. I just want to give him a quick shout-out, say hi to him. He texted me, say he's listening for the first time. So, like you said, worldwide listeners.
Worldwide. We've got them all over the place. So welcome to the show, Todd. Where did you say he lives?
Vieira.
Yeah. All right, Vieira. All right, well, Coach, I appreciate you joining us on Monday night. I want you to get another one of those barbecue sandwiches, and I'm going to wrap up with Coach Staples here before we get out of here. But looking forward to seeing you Friday, and I want to go over there and get a win against Pine Forest.
Yep. Sounds good to me, and I'll see you guys Friday.
Yes, sir. Thanks for taking the time to join us on Monday night. That's head coach Kevin Mays, and we're operating on two mics here tonight, so we've got to pass it back over here to Coach Staples. And I'm looking forward to that trip Friday night, Coach. I know you are too. Be great to get a win against Pine Forest, and then as Coach said, we'd have a chance here to play 2 in a row at home.
Well, like I said, redemption. You know, last year we felt we got one stolen from us over there.
We did, yeah.
You know, 28-14. Their coaches had talked a lot of smack before the game. So I broke into my Ric Flair dance over there on the sideline, up 28-14. Probably cost us a game. You know, that was some bad mojo that I brought on us. But also, while we're talking about, you know, he talked about Todd Shanaville, I want to give a shout-out to my son and those Hawks where Coach Mays used to coach. They've won their 2 playoff games by shutouts. They got a powerful Edgewater this week, so good luck to those dudes down there. And I know all those guys down there still really strong supporters of Coach Mays down there here. Still, I mean, even those people come up to games and all that. So that's really cool. And like I said, if it hadn't been for my son, Coach Mays wouldn't be in Baker County right now.
So what's Shane coaching? He's coaching defense?
He's got quarterbacks. He's
quarterback coach.
Yep, quarterback coach.
Now, did he play quarterback?
He didn't play football.
He didn't play football.
He was a basketball player.
He's a basketball guy.
George Mason guy.
But you taught him everything he knows about.
Absolutely. I taught him well, and I also taught him crossover dribble and some 3-point stuff.
I don't know if I believe that. All right, Coach. Well, let's transition for a moment. So best of luck to the Wildcats this Friday night. Guys, if you're listening in, take that momentum. Take that momentum we got from this past Friday night, take it over there, and remember that we lost to these guys last year, and remember how they talked to us on the field, because I was standing down there and I heard them talking. So remember that, and let's go over there and beat these guys. Coach, Friday night, you were almost dead perfect on some of the calls you made, but I will tell you, that Indiana-Ohio State game got a little tighter than you thought it was going to get.
It did, and that just goes to show you that Ohio State is not as good as advertised. The Big Ten is a mockery this year.
Yeah, maybe defensively, right? I mean, because Indiana came storming back and almost had a chance to go get a win in that game, but they didn't. The other one I was going to mention, that UCF-Cincinnati game a lot closer than you probably thought it was going to be.
It was. UCF, what do they call that? The stadium down there,
the bounce house.
The bounce house.
Yes, the bounce house.
It must
because it's about to fall apart. I think that's why.
Probably, but and what I told you about Tennessee, they came out very physical.
They did.
Played hard early.
They
just wear down. They don't have much depth, I think, is their problem right now. But look for them in the next year or two.
Well, they're getting
Coach Pruitt's doing some good things at Tennessee.
Well, and they're getting recruiting. I mean, Tennessee's in the top 10 in recruiting right now. So, I mean, they're getting some players, and if Pruitt can if Pruitt can change the mindset and they get it going there, Tennessee's going to be tough again, no doubt. I agree with you 100%. So let's look at this week real fast. So you've got Kentucky and Florida going to play this weekend in Gainesville. I think Florida should be able to handle that game. Alabama, Auburn. You know, has Auburn got anything for the title?
Absolutely they do.
Alabama's favored by 24.5, Coach.
Alabama's defense struggles with the up-tempo offense, and nobody does it better than Gus Malzahn. Now, the key will be down the running game and putting it on Bo Nix's shoulders. Bo Nix is a average quarterback that needs a strong running game in order to be successful. Does that make sense?
No, it makes a ton of sense. Got to have something to take a little pressure off of it,
right?
And in the right situation.
Baker County fans will remember this guy. They've got to shut down Schwartz at receiver.
Okay, yeah.
From American Heritage.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of ironic. Alabama's best defensive back is Pat Surtain covering Schwartz, and they were teammates at American Heritage.
And Andrew Chatfield actually made more plays this past weekend for Florida than I've seen him make since he's been there. So a lot of those Heritage guys getting a lot of time.
And while we're on that,
Surtain,
how about our boy Jamie Rogers coming home from the hospital?
Oh, I'm happy about that. Yeah,
you know, whipping COVID. I think maybe he was just trying to get some attention and being a little bit of a hypochondriac, but
No, I'm excited to hear that. Some other folks that we've known in the past weeks that were having some hard times. Some of those guys have gotten better, so I'm happy to hear that as well. So hopefully, just stay as safe as you can. But let me throw this one at you, Coach. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago the Fighting Falwells up there at Liberty University. You know, they got a big win against Virginia Tech a couple of weeks ago. Big win for them, right? So you beat Virginia Tech. That's a huge win for Liberty University. Well, Virginia Tech got thrashed by Pitt this past week, okay? I mean thrashed. Pitt beat them, I don't even remember, 48. It was bad. So Pitt goes on the road to face Clemson this week. Any chance?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, Trevor Lawrence hadn't played in, 5 weeks?
I'm telling you, for me, this is a game to watch. Pitt at Clemson might knock Clemson out of the whole playoff.
I'm telling you right, as a quarterback, when you haven't had live game action in 5 weeks, you can't simulate the speed in practice. Now, Clemson, Bama, those places maybe you can a little bit, but I think if there's a shot, it'll be this week that Pitt upends Clemson.
Yeah, that's if you're looking at games to watch for this weekend in college football, that's a game to watch. Another one to watch, LSU. LSU is going on the road to Texas A&M this week. I'm not saying LSU is a really good team right now, but LSU is a team that as the season's going to go on, they're going to continue to get better because Orgeron's too good of a coach to allow them to just continue to be bad, and they've got players on that team.
Is he a good coach?
I think he is. I think he is.
All right.
Well, here's the thing. He's had players, right? He's had players. He's had
a lot of players.
He's had a lot of players. But don't be fooled. He's got players on this team, too. Okay?
I'm going to tell you what. Jimbo's had a good year at A&M.
He has.
You know, he's rebounded from all the criticism about leaving FSU high and dry and, struggling a little bit last year at A&M. But they've been strong this year. A couple of breaks against Alabama, and that game goes down to the wire.
No, I'm with you completely. But if you want 2 games to watch this week, watch Pitt Clemson and watch LSU Texas A&M. I promise you those are going to be fourth-quarter games.
I'm gonna say Bama Auburn too, as much as it hurts me to say, but Alabama's defense is still not where it needs to be, and the up tempo of Auburn is going to cause some problems.
Alabama scored 63 points last week against Kentucky, and this week the over/under for Alabama Auburn 62. I don't get it.
That was a depleted Kentucky team.
Yeah, I know, but I still don't get it.
I don't either.
I take the over all day. Yeah.
I think you're gonna have it's gonna be like a 42-20
something,
31 game, something like that.
So the over. Yeah.
Over.
Right
all
with
the way.
The over
all the way. By the way, I will not be coming home straight home from Pensacola if anybody wants to ride with me. So if you want to load up on the over, just hop in the Staples Caddy this weekend.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, Jaguars are back at home again this Sunday, so I'm going to have to make the Pensacola trip and come back. So I won't be able to stick around.
That's pleasurable.
I might give you 20 though to stick on that over for me if you're going to be out there. All right, we'll move away from that. Coach, good talking to you. I appreciate you being with us this past Friday night.
It was great filling in.
Yeah.
Time for me to get back into my normal routine and get Baker back in here. I'm shot out now.
Well, for all you guys that are wondering about Jackie Baker being on suspension, he'll be back. His suspension's been lifted. He'll be back on Friday night with me on the call from Pensacola. We'll be out there with head coach Kevin Mays and these Wildcats. Looking forward to it. Remember, 7:30 kickoff, but that's Central Time. So if you're listening for the game here in Baker County, it's going to be 8:30. So 8:30 Eastern Time this Friday night against Pensacola Pine Forest. Looking forward to it. Go Wildcats. And once again, thanks as always to John Meadows over there at Glen Baptist Church keeping us on the air here on Monday nights. And
John, thanks for not censoring me too. I know it was a hard call, but love you, brother. Thank you.
All right, John, have a good night. And Wildcat fans, we'll talk to you Friday night from Pensacola Pine Forest. Take it easy.